The 19th of February, 1945, Iwo Jima. The air here doesn't smell like the ocean. It smells of sulfur and burning meat. You are standing on black volcanic ash that swallows your boots like quicksand, making every step a battle against gravity. Amidst the chaos of mortar shells turning men into mist, Sergeant Tony Stein stands up. But look at what is in his hands. It isn't a standard-issue rifle. It isn't a weapon authorized by the United States Marine Corps. It is a monstrosity. A jagged, ugly, metal Frankenstein monster welded together from the wreckage of a crashed Navy dive bomber. No cooling jacket, a stolen stock, a trigger mechanism improvised from an aircraft solenoid. His commanding officer called it a death trap. His squad mates called it a useless pile of scrap that would melt in his hands after the first burst. By all logic of warfare, this thing should explode and kill him instantly. But then, Stein pulls the trigger, and you don't hear the rhythmic thump, thump, thump of a standard machine gun. You hear a terrifying, high-pitched scream like canvas ripping apart. In 3 seconds, 75 rounds vaporize a Japanese concrete pillbox. This is the Stinger. The weapon that wasn't supposed to work, held by a toolmaker who wasn't supposed to lead, clearing a path through hell with a gun made of garbage. To understand why this moment is insane, you have to look at the beach through the eyes of a Marine trapped in the sand. The tactical map of Iwo Jima isn't just terrain, it is a web of death. Over 800 concrete pillboxes are hidden in the volcanic rock, invisible until they open fire. You are pinned down, chest pressed against the hot, black ash. You squeeze the trigger of your standard-issue Browning automatic rifle. Thump, thump, thump. 500 rounds a minute. It feels agonizingly slow. The bullets just bounce off the reinforced concrete like hail on a tin roof. It is useless. Then, the fine volcanic grit works its way into the receiver. Click. Your weapon is dead. You are now just a sitting duck in a black desert. The military manuals say this situation is a stalemate. The manuals say you wait for tank support or an airstrike. But Tony Stein didn't read the manual. He looked at the twisted, smoking wreckage of a crashed Navy plane and saw a solution that terrified his own engineers. We are about to walk into the fire with a man who decided that if the US military couldn't give him the firepower to survive, he would rip it out of a cockpit and build it himself. Imagine you are stepping off a landing craft. The steel ramp drops with a heavy clang. You expect the firm impact of a beach beneath your boots. Instead, you sink. You sink 12 inches deep into a substance that feels less like sand and more like industrial waste. It is black, coarse, volcanic ash. It grabs your ankles with a dead man's grip. You try to run, but you can't. You are moving in slow motion. Your heart is hammering against your ribs, 140 beats per minute, but your legs are heavy as lead. The air is thick, not with the salt of the Pacific, but with the rotten egg stench of sulfur rising from the cracks in the earth. This is Iwo Jima. It is an island that smells like it is burning from the inside out. You look ahead. There is no enemy to shoot. There is no front line. There is only a barren, black slope leading up to a mountain that looms over you like a giant tombstone. Mount Suribachi. It watches you. For the first 20 minutes, it is silent. Unnervingly silent. You begin to think the bombardment worked. But you are wrong. You are standing in the center of an amphitheater of death, and you are the show. Hidden beneath that black rock is a network of tunnels 11 miles long. 21,000 Japanese soldiers are waiting underground. They are not on the island, they are in the island. And they have spent years building 800 concrete pillboxes, perfectly camouflaged, with firing lanes that overlap every single inch of the beach where you are currently stuck. Then, the order is given. The ground erupts. It isn't a battle. It is a slaughter. Mortar shells drop with terrifying precision. You dive for cover, but the volcanic ash offers no protection. It shifts and slides. You can't dig a foxhole because the walls just collapse back in on you. You are naked, exposed. You reach for your weapon. The M1918 Browning automatic rifle, the BAR. It is the heavy hitter of the Marine squad. You spot a slit in a concrete bunker, 40 yards away, a muzzle flash blinking like a strobe light. You pull the trigger. Thump, 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 thump. The BAR fires a 20-round magazine. In the heat of combat, those 20 rounds are gone in under 2.5 seconds. You reach for a fresh magazine, your fingers fumbling, slick with sweat and grit. But the fine volcanic dust has already worked its way into the receiver. The action grinds. It jams. Even when it works, the rate of fire 500 rounds per minute is too slow. It is rhythmic. It is predictable. The enemy inside the bunker just ducks, waits for your reload, and pops back up to cut your squad to pieces. The standard issue American firepower, designed in boardrooms and tested on clean ranges, is suffocating under the reality of this black hell. The logic of the battlefield has broken down. The Marines are pinned. The advance has stopped before it even truly began. The casualty reports are coming in over the radio, a stream of static and screaming. They need something faster. They need something violent enough to suppress an enemy that refuses to break. They need a weapon that doesn't exist in the inventory of the United States Marine Corps. In this moment of absolute tactical failure, where the might of the American military machine has ground to a halt in the black sand, salvation didn't come from a general or a weapons scientist in Washington. It came from a toolmaker from Ohio who looked at a pile of burning garbage and saw a way to cheat death. To understand the weapon, you have to understand the hands that built it. Before the black sand of Iwo Jima, before the uniform and the rank of sergeant, Tony Stein was not a warrior born of bloodlust. He was a maker. In Dayton, Ohio, his world was defined by the smell of cutting oil and the screech of a lathe. He was a toolmaker, a man who understood that steel has a personality, that machinery has a soul, and that every mechanical problem has a mechanical solution. When he joined the Marines, he looked at the tools of his new trade, the rifles, the carbines, the light machine guns, and he didn't see weapons. He saw machines. And he saw their flaws. He looked at the Browning automatic rifle, the BAR, the standard squad support weapon. It was reliable. It was sturdy. But Stein listened to the rhythm of its fire. Pap, 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 pap. 500 rounds per minute. To a civilian, that sounds fast. To a toolmaker looking at a fortified Japanese bunker, that sounds like a death sentence. It was too slow. It gave the enemy time to think, time to react, time to kill you. Stein needed something that didn't just suppress the enemy. He needed something that would erase them. He found his answer in a graveyard. Picture a salvage dump in Hawaii. The twisted aluminum carcasses of Navy aircraft lie rotting under the tropical sun. It smells of oxidized metal and spilled aviation fuel. Stein climbs onto the wing of a wrecked Douglas Dauntless dive bomber. He isn't looking for souvenirs. He is looking for the heart of the beast. He pries open the wing access panel and pulls out the AN M2 .30 caliber machine gun. This weapon was never meant for human hands. It was designed to be mounted on a steel wing, cooled by the freezing slipstream of high-altitude flight, and fired electrically by a pilot pressing a button on a joystick. It fires at a cyclic rate of over 1,300 rounds per minute. That is more than 20 bullets every single second. If a man tried to fire this from his shoulder, the recoil would shatter his collarbone. If he fired it for more than a few seconds without the slipstream wind, the barrel would glow cherry red and melt. Stein didn't care. He dragged the heavy steel carcass back to the armory tent. Now, listen to the sounds of creation. The harsh zzz of an arc welder, the grinding of a metal file. Stein is performing surgery. He strips the weapon naked. He rips off the heavy cooling jacket, leaving the bare barrel exposed to the air. It looks fragile. It looks wrong, but it saves weight. He steals a stock from an M1 Garand rifle and welds it to the back of the receiver. He scavenges a bipod from a BAR and mounts it to the front. But there is a problem. The gun has no trigger. It relies on an electrical solenoid from the plane. Stein doesn't panic. He thinks like a toolmaker. He digs through the scrap pile. He fabricates a mechanical trigger linkage from scratch, converting the weapon from electric to manual. He gives it a pistol grip. He names it the stinger. When he holds it up, it looks like something pulled from a nightmare. It is ugly. It is covered in rough welds and grease. It weighs 25 pounds. He takes it to the test range. He loads a belt of 30-06 ammunition. He squeezes the handmade trigger. The sound is not a bang. It is a tear in the fabric of the air. The target downrange doesn't just get hit, it disintegrates. Sawdust kicks up in a violent cloud. The barrel heats up instantly, radiating waves of shimmering heat into Stein's face. He can smell the oil on the gun cooking off. He knows that if he touches that barrel, his skin will peel off. He knows that this gun eats ammunition so fast that he will be empty in 15 seconds of sustained fire. It is a logistical nightmare. It is dangerous to the user. It is unstable. But for the first time, Stein holds a machine that matches the ferocity of the enemy waiting for him. The 19th of February, 1945. The transport ships are rocking in the waves off the coast of Iwo Jima. Stein stands on the deck, the stinger slung over his shoulder. A superior officer walks by. He looks at the Franken gun. He looks at the exposed barrel. He looks at the non-standard ammunition belts Stein has hand-rolled. The officer shakes his head. "That thing is a liability, Sergeant," he says. "It eats too much ammo. It's going to jam in the sand. It's going to get you killed. Leave it on the ship." Stein looks at the officer. Then he looks at the black island smoking on the horizon. He knows what is waiting on that beach. He knows the standard issue won't cut it. He tightens his grip on the stinger. He has a choice to make. Obey orders and go into battle with a weapon he knows is insufficient, or risk a court-martial to bring the only thing he believes can save his men. He steps onto the landing craft. The stinger comes with him. 9-5 hours. The ramp of the landing craft slams into the black slush. The first thing that hits you isn't the bullets, it's the noise. It is a physical wall of sound. Mortars are coughing earth into the sky. The Japanese Nambu machine guns, the woodpeckers, are chattering from unseen slits in the mountain. Marines are dropping into the ash, screaming for corpsmen, their bodies folded over like rag dolls. The air is thick with the copper taste of blood and the rotten egg stink of volcanic sulfur. Everyone is hugging the dirt, everyone except Tony Stein. He steps off the ramp. His boots sink 6 inches into the loose, black grit. He heaves the 25-pound stinger to his hip. It is heavy. It is awkward. It is an ugly, oil-stained piece of machinery that looks like it belongs in a junkyard, not a battlefield. A Japanese pillbox, reinforced with 3 feet of concrete and covered in sand, opens fire from the left flank. It is pinning down the entire platoon. A standard Marine BAR gunner tries to return fire. The rounds chip the concrete. It is annoying to the enemy, but not fatal. The Japanese gunner inside keeps firing. Then, Stein levels the stinger. He squeezes the handmade trigger. It doesn't sound like a gun. It sounds like a giant piece of canvas being ripped apart by a god. The sound is continuous, a high-pitched, terrifying buzz that drowns out the screams on the beach. In one distinct burst of 3 seconds, the stinger spits out 75 rounds of 30-06 caliber ammunition. Watch the pillbox. It doesn't just take hits. It begins to disintegrate. The sheer volume of fire, 1,350 rounds per minute, is hammering the concrete so fast that the structure physically cannot hold together. Chunks of rock and rebar fly into the air. The Japanese gunner inside stops firing instantly. There is no pause for him to duck. There is no rhythm for him to time. The suppression is absolute. Stein releases the trigger. The silence that follows is deafening. Smoke pours off the naked barrel of the stinger. Without the cooling jacket, the steel is already glowing a dull, angry red. Heat waves shimmer in front of Stein's face, distorting his vision. He can smell the gun oil cooking off the metal. It smells like a mechanic's shop on fire. He looks down at his hands. The vibration from that 3-second burst has numbed his fingers. The recoil didn't kick his shoulder. It tried to push him backward into the sea. He has to lean his entire body weight forward just to keep the muzzle level. This isn't a rifle. It is a fire hose spraying lead. He takes a step forward. He is standing tall, a lone silhouette against the grey sky. This is the crazy element we talked about. In a world where standing up means death, Stein is walking because he carries a weapon that forces the enemy to keep their heads down. He spots another bunker. A spider hole. He turns the stinger. The sand explodes. The enemy position is erased. But now, the reality of the data hits him. It hits him hard. Stein reaches for his ammo belt. It feels light. Too light. Let's do the math that is currently running through Stein's mind. A standard Marine carries enough ammo for a few minutes of sustained combat, but the Stinger eats ammunition 3 times faster than a BAR. Stein carried a belt of 100 rounds. He just fired 2 bursts. He looks at the belt. It is empty. The buzzing stops. The monster in his hands is hungry, and it is starving. Stein drops to a knee behind a small mound of black sand. His breathing is ragged. He looks to his left. A Marine with a standard M1 Garand rifle is looking at him with wide eyes, terrified and awestruck. Stein looks at the Marine's ammo pouches. They are useless to him. The Stinger needs belted ammo, specifically prepared, specifically rolled. He cannot just borrow a clip from a buddy. He is now 300 yards inland. He is alone. He is holding a 25-pound paperweight that is hot enough to burn his skin. And the Japanese have realized that the buzzing sound has stopped. The Nambu machine guns open up again. Bullets kick up the sand around his feet. Thwack, thwack. Stein realizes the trap of his own invention. He has created the ultimate offensive weapon, but he has created a logistical nightmare. He is the deadliest man on the island, but only for 15 seconds at a time. He looks back toward the beach. The landing craft is 100 yards away, through a gauntlet of mortar fire and snipers. That is where the ammo is. He looks at his boots. They are heavy. They are sinking in the sand. They are slowing him down. He looks at his helmet. It is heavy. It limits his vision. Stein does something that defies all military training. He reaches down and unlaces his boots. He kicks them off. He takes off his helmet and throws it into the sand. He stands up, barefoot on the jagged, hot volcanic rock. He grabs the empty Stinger by its carrying handle. He isn't going to hide. He isn't going to wait. He is going to run. The Nambu machine gun fire is a rhythmic, mechanical cough. Tack, 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 tack. It is the sound of a predator that knows its prey is cornered. Stein is pressed against a small depression in the volcanic ash. He can feel the vibration of the enemy rounds impacting the earth inches from his head. He is out of ammunition. He is 300 yards from the supply line. In a standard tactical manual, this is the end. You dig in. You wait for support. You pray the mortar shells don't find you. But Tony Stein stands up. He looks ridiculous. He has no helmet. His service boots are lying in the dirt behind him. He is standing in his socks on a battlefield, made of jagged obsidian and ash that is hot enough to cook an egg. He grips the carrying handle of the empty Stinger. He takes a breath. The air tastes of sulfur and cordite, and then he sprints. He doesn't run like a soldier laden with gear. He runs like a track star. Without the weight of his helmet and boots, he moves with a speed that defies the logic of the terrain. The Japanese gunners in the pillboxes track him, but they are tracking a standard Marine speed. Stein is a blur. Bullets kick up geysers of black sand behind his heels, but they are always a split second too late. He is a ghost. Moving through the kill zone, he reaches the beach. It is a chaotic symphony of logistics and death. Crates of ammunition are stacked high. Wounded men are screaming for morphine. Stein doesn't stop to rest. He grabs fresh belts of .30 caliber ammunition. He slings them over his shoulders. 1, 2, 3 belts. The copper casings gleam against his sweat-stained, dirty fatigues. He should stay here. He is safe here. The beach is secure, but he turns around. He looks back at the smoking tree line where his squad is pinned down. He looks at a wounded Marine lying in the sand near the water, bleeding out, waiting for a stretcher that isn't coming. Stein grabs the wounded man. He hoists him onto his shoulder with one arm, the stinger gripped in the other. Now, picture this image. A man without shoes, carrying 100 pounds of ammunition and a dying soldier, running back into the mouth of hell. He reaches his unit. He drops the ammo. He drops the wounded man to the corpsman, and he picks up the stinger. He reloads. The buzzsaw screams again. Another pillbox goes silent. The concrete crumbles. The Japanese defenders are paralyzed. They had stopped firing because they thought the machine gunner had fled. They didn't expect him to return with a vengeance. Stein doesn't stop. He burns through the ammo. The barrel glows. The gun jams. He fixes it. Not with a manual, but with instinct. He bangs the receiver, clears the feed tray, and fires again. Then, it happens. A Japanese sniper round finds him. Clang! The stinger flies out of his hands. The impact numbs his arm up to the shoulder. The gun lands in the dirt, 5 feet away. Any other soldier would see this as a sign to retreat. The weapon is hit. It's over. Stein dives for the gun. He ignores the pain in his arm. He grabs the stinger. He inspects it like a mechanic inspecting a faulty carburetor. The sights are bent. The magazine well is dented. He doesn't panic. He smiles. He raises the weapon. He doesn't aim with the sights, they are useless now. He aims by walking the tracers into the target. He watches the stream of light hit the enemy bunker and adjusts his fire like he is watering a garden with a hose. He runs out of ammo again. He takes off running again, barefoot, back to the beach. He does this 8 times. 8 times he runs the gauntlet of death. 8 times he returns with ammo. And 8 times he carries a wounded Marine on his back to safety. The Japanese commander in the bunker above looks down. He sees one man with a broken, ugly gun and no shoes, dismantling an entire defensive line that took years to build. The data said this position was impregnable. The story of the battle was supposed to be a massacre of the Americans, but Tony Stein flipped the script. He turned a defensive stalemate into an offensive rout, simply because he refused to be weighed down by his boots, by his helmet, or by the rules of engagement. Take a breath. Let the ringing in your ears fade for a second. What you just witnessed, a man running barefoot through hell with a weapon made of garbage, is not the kind of story you find in high school textbooks. Textbooks like neat lines and generals on maps. They don't like the messy, oil-stained reality of a toolmaker welding a Franken gun in a tent because the standard issue wasn't good enough to keep his friends alive. Tony Stein's stinger doesn't exist anymore. It was dismantled, lost to the sands of Iwo Jima, or rusted away in a scrapyard. The physical proof is gone. All that remains is the story, and this is why we are here. We are not just watching a video. We are excavating the truth. There are thousands of Tony Steins buried in the archives of World War II. Men and women who improvised, who adapted, who broke the rules of engagement just to buy one more sunrise. But their names are fading. We are building a monument to them, right here, in the comments section. I want you to look into your own knowledge of history, or perhaps your own family's legacy. Do you know of a story of battlefield improvisation? A weapon built from scraps? A tactic born of pure desperation that saved lives? Or perhaps you have a grandfather whose story has never been told beyond the dinner table. Don't let that history die with them. Write it down below. Be the historian that the textbooks failed to be. Let's turn the comment section into a library of the forgotten, so that when the next generation asks what it took to win the war, we can show them it wasn't just the atomic bomb or the Sherman tank, it was the grit of men like Stein. Share your story. Let's keep their memory alive. Now, back to the ridge. The battle isn't over yet. It is now past noon. The sun is high and indifferent, baking the black sand until the air above the ground ripples like water. Tony Stein is no longer running. He is stumbling. The adrenaline that fueled his 8 sprints to the beach has evaporated, leaving behind a residue of leaden exhaustion. His lungs are burning, coated with the fine, razor-sharp dust of Iwo Jima. But the job is not done. The unit has pushed forward, away from the water's edge, moving up the incline toward the base of Mount Suribachi. But here, the Japanese defense network tightens like a noose. Ahead, 30 yards up the slope, is a cluster of pillboxes. They are mutually supporting positions. If you attack one, the other two cut you down. It is a kill box, designed by engineers who have had 20 years to study this specific patch of dirt. Stein looks down at the Stinger. The weapon is dying. The barrel, originally designed to be cooled by the 200 mile-per-hour slipstream of a dive bomber at altitude, is now suffocating in the stagnant heat of the ground. The metal has turned a shade of violet blue from the extreme thermal stress. The grease that lubricated the action has long since boiled away. Now, it is metal grinding on metal. Every time Stein moves the gun, the internal springs creak. He wraps his left hand in a rag, a piece of canvas torn from a supply bag. It is the only way he can hold the foregrip without his flesh sizzling against the steel. The order comes down the line. They need to blind those bunkers, so the demolition teams, the men carrying satchel charges of high explosives, can get close enough to throw them inside. Stein nods. He doesn't speak. His throat is too dry to form words. He stands up. The Nambu machine guns from the center bunker pivot toward him. They recognize the silhouette. They recognize the man with the strange gun. Stein squeezes the trigger. The Stinger roars, but the sound has changed. It is no longer the clean, high-pitched rip of the morning. It is a guttural, coughing mechanical scream. The rate of fire has dropped from 1,300 rounds to maybe 900. The heat has expanded the metal, creating friction, slowing the bolt. The gun is fighting him. It wants to jam. It wants to quit. But Stein forces it to work. He walks the fire onto the aperture of the center bunker. He isn't aiming at a target. He is chipping away at the architecture. The 30-06 rounds hammer the edges of the firing slit, turning the concrete into a cloud of choking grey dust. The Japanese gunner inside is blinded. He cannot see to fire back. Go, go, go! Stein doesn't hear his own voice shouting. He feels the vibration of it in his chest. Two Marines carrying satchel charges sprint forward, bent double, using the stream of Stein's tracers as a physical shield. Stein's right hand, the one on the pistol grip, is cramping. The vibration is shaking his bones, rattling his teeth. He counts the rounds in his head. He knows the belt is getting light. He has 3 seconds of fire left, maybe 4, if he stops now. The dust settles. The Japanese gunner sees the demolition team. His friends die. The gun begins to stutter. Chug, chug, chug. The heat is warping the feed mechanism. Stein steps forward. He doesn't take cover. He exposes his entire body to the flanking bunkers to get a better angle on the center one. He leans into the weapon, using his body weight to force the action to cycle, fighting the physics of thermal expansion with brute strength. The last 5 feet. The demolition team is almost there. The Stinger fires its last round. The bolt slams home on an empty chamber with a metallic clack that sounds louder than the explosions around them. Silence. For 1 heartbeat, Stein is standing in the open, holding a useless, smoking club, staring into the black eye of the enemy bunker. Then, the satchel charge goes in. It isn't a Hollywood explosion. It is a dull, heavy thump that compresses the air in your lungs. The roof of the bunker lifts 6 inches and slams back down. Smoke pours out of the firing slit like water from a broken pipe. Stein falls to his knees. He doesn't drop the gun. He sets it down gently on the ash, like it is a living thing that has just saved his life. He looks at his hands. The rag he wrapped around the barrel is smoking. It is charred black. Underneath, his skin is blistered, red and raw. He didn't feel it while he was firing. He feels it now. He looks up the slope. The line has moved. The Marines are advancing. The kill box has been broken. Not by a tank, not by an airstrike, but by a man who refused to let a broken machine stop working until the job was done. This is the turning point. The data of the battle, the casualty ratios, the yards gained just shifted in favor of the United States, purchased with the skin on Tony Stein's hands. the 20th of February, 1945. The sun rises over Iwo Jima, revealing a landscape that looks less like an island and more like the surface of the moon, churned by explosives. Tony Stein is sitting on a crate of rations. He is alive. He is a celebrity among the men of the 28th Marines. They look at him with a mixture of reverence and disbelief. They look at the Stinger, now resting against a sandbag, cold and silent. It looks like a piece of junk again, without the fire and the noise. It is just an ugly collection of welded metal. Stein tries to light a cigarette. His hands are shaking, not from fear, but from the neurological aftershocks of the vibration. His muscles are spasming. He rubs his shoulder, where the buttstock pounded a bruise the color of an eggplant. An officer approaches him. He offers Stein a ticket out, a promotion, a trip to the rear, a chance to go home and sell war bonds. Stein looks at the officer. Then he looks at his squad. They are cleaning their rifles. They are writing letters they might never send. They are teenagers with the eyes of old men. Stein shakes his head. He puts his helmet back on. "I stay," he says. The job isn't finished. 10 days later, the 1st of March, 1945. The landscape has changed. The black sand beaches are behind them. Now, they are in the meat grinder of the ridges. Hill 362A. The air here is different. It is wet. A cold mist clings to the rocks, obscuring vision, muffling sound. It is a sniper's paradise. Stein is leading a patrol. He isn't carrying the Stinger today. The Stinger is gone, broken, out of ammo, or left behind because it was too heavy for the vertical climb. He is carrying a standard rifle. He is just a Marine sergeant again. He stands up to point out a Japanese machine gun nest to his men. He is doing his job. He is drawing fire to protect his squad. Crack. It is a single shot. It lacks the terrifying roar of the Stinger. It is small, precise, final. Stein falls. He hits the ground hard. He does not crawl. He does not reach for a medic. The silence that follows is immediate. The man who ran through hell 8 times, the man who invented a machine to cheat death, lies still on a wet rock, thousands of miles from Dayton, Ohio. The battle moves on. It steps over him. The war machine does not pause to mourn. Now, we fast forward. Not to a victory parade. Not to a cheering crowd. We are in a quiet living room in the United States, 1 year later. The 19th of February, 1946. Exactly 1 year after Stein stepped onto the beach. A woman stands there. She is young, but she looks tired. This is Tony Stein's widow. A general is standing in front of her. He is holding a blue box. He opens it. Inside lies the Medal of Honor. It is gold. It is beautiful. It is the highest honor a nation can bestow. The general speaks of bravery. He speaks of conspicuous gallantry. He speaks of the 20 men Stein killed and the lives he saved. But look at the woman's hands as she takes the medal. It is light. It weighs almost nothing. It does not weigh as much as a husband. It does not have the warmth of a human hand. It is cold metal. She places it on a shelf. And here is the ghost. Where is the Stinger? Where is the weapon that saved the 28th Marines? Where is the physical proof of Stein's genius? It is gone. There is no museum exhibit housing the Stinger. There are no blueprints filed in the Pentagon. When Stein died, the weapon died with him. It was likely stripped for parts by another desperate Marine, or kicked into a pile of refuse, or buried under the asphalt of an airstrip on Iwo Jima. The data of the Stinger, the fire rate, the weight, the lethality, survived in the memories of the men who saw it. It lived on in the design philosophy of the M60 machine gun decades later. The concept of a shoulder-fired heavy machine gun became a doctrine, but the object itself? The piece of steel that Tony Stein poured his soul into. It rusted away into nothingness. We love the story of the hero who builds a magic sword to slay the dragon. We expect the sword to be hung above the fireplace, but in the reality of war, the sword is lost. The hero does not come home. All that is left is a medal in a box, a widow in an empty house, and a photograph of a smiling man holding a gun that shouldn't have existed. Stein proved that one man's ingenuity could change the course of a battle, but the war proved that it doesn't care about ingenuity. It only cares about the harvest. And, on Hill 362A, it harvested Tony Stein. Fast forward 20 years. It is 1965. The jungles of Vietnam. A young American machine gunner is sweating in the humid heat. He is holding a weapon called the M60. It is heavy. It is belt-fed. It can be fired from the shoulder. It is the backbone of American infantry firepower. The soldier doesn't know Tony Stein's name. He has never heard of the Stinger. But as he squeezes the trigger and feels the rhythmic, suppressing power of a man-portable heavy machine gun, he is holding Tony Stein's legacy. The engineers at the Ordnance Bureau studied the reports from Iwo Jima. They saw the data points. 1,300 rounds per minute. Portability. Devastation. They realized that the future of warfare wasn't just about static defense. It was about mobile, overwhelming firepower carried by a single man. The Stinger was a piece of junk welded in a tent, but it wrote the doctrine for the modern machine gun. Stein didn't just build a gun, he built a philosophy that kept men alive decades after his death. Now, let's go back to Dayton, Ohio. Walk into the workshop where Stein used to work before the war. The air here is still. It smells of old dust and machine oil. There is a lathe in the corner, covered in a tarp. On the workbench, there are tools, calipers, wrenches, a hammer with a worn wooden handle. Pick up the hammer, feel the balance of it. This is what Tony Stein was. A maker. A man who created. This is the human paradox that hurts to look at. Tony Stein had the mind of an engineer and the hands of a craftsman. In a world at peace, those hands would have built engines, or fixed bicycles for neighborhood kids, or built a house. But war took those hands and forced them to build a machine designed to erase human beings. He took the most creative act a human can do, invention, and applied it to the most destructive act a human can do, killing. He improvised not to create art, but to create a Pillbox of his own. And the tragedy is that he was brilliant at it. Zoom out now. Pull back from the workshop. Pull back from Ohio. Return to the black sands of Iwo Jima. Look at the summit of Mount Suribachi. You know the image. 6 Marines raising the American flag. It is the most famous photograph in military history. It is clean. It is heroic. It is the symbol of victory. But tilt your head down. Look away from the flag. Look down the slope, past the cheering men, down to the base of the mountain where the ash is churned into black mud. That is where the victory was actually bought. The flag went up on February 23rd. Tony Stein was still alive then. He probably saw it. He probably heard the cheers, but he didn't stop to celebrate. He was down in the grit, cleaning his rifle, checking his ammo, preparing for the next bunker. The flag is the symbol, but the Stinger was the reality. The flag represents the idea of triumph, but Stein's blistered hands and the pile of brass casings around his feet represent the cost. History tends to remember the generals who draw the arrows on the map. It remembers the presidents who declare victory. But the map is not the territory. The territory is a 24-year-old toolmaker running barefoot across sharp rocks, carrying a weapon that wasn't supposed to exist, doing a job that wasn't supposed to be possible. Stein's Medal of Honor citation contains a lot of words. It uses phrases like intrepidity and conspicuous gallantry. But those are just words on paper. They cannot convey the heat of the barrel. They cannot convey the sound of the Stinger screaming like a banshee. The true insight of this story isn't about the gun. It isn't about the medal. It is about the capacity of an ordinary man to reject the reality he is given. The reality was, you are pinned down. You have the wrong weapon. You are going to die. Stein rejected that. He bent the metal. He bent the rules. He bent the odds. He proved that when the machinery of war fails you, the only thing left is the machinery of the human spirit. And that is the only weapon that never jams. We are at the end of the line. The smoke has cleared on Iwo Jima, and the noise of the Stinger has faded into history. But there is one final mission, and it falls to you. I want to speak to you not just as a viewer, but as a custodian of memory. We live in an age of infinite information. Every minute, 500 hours of video are uploaded to this platform. In that ocean of noise, cat videos, dance trends, and pranks, stories like Tony Stein's are in danger of drowning. They are in danger of being buried under the digital ash, just as the physical stinger was buried in the sand. This brings us to the moral call to action. If this story made your pulse race, if you felt the heat of that barrel or the weight of that decision to run barefoot into fire, then you have a responsibility. History does not survive by accident. It survives because people choose to carry it. Just as Stein carried his wounded men, you must carry his legacy. When you click the like button, you are not just validating a video, you are sending a signal. You are lighting a flare. The YouTube algorithm is a machine. It does not know courage. It does not know sacrifice. It only knows data. It only knows signals. When you engage with this story, you are teaching the machine that this matters. You are forcing the algorithm to prioritize heroism over triviality. You are hacking the system, just like Stein hacked that aircraft gun, to ensure that this story gets recommended to a student, a veteran, or a history lover who needs to hear it. A like is your way of clearing a path for the truth to advance. And finally, I want to connect with you, the community. Tony Stein was a toolmaker who solved a life-or-death problem with the junk he found in a scrapyard. He proved that it's not the resources you have, but the resourcefulness of your mind that wins the battle. So, I want to ask you, who is the Tony Stein in your life? Do you know a story of someone, a grandfather, an uncle, or even a colleague who used pure ingenuity to solve an impossible problem when the standard tools failed them? Go down to the comments right now. Don't just write great video. Write their name. Tell us their story. Let's turn the comments section into a hall of fame for the innovators and the risk-takers who refused to accept the status quo. I will be down there reading them, pinning the most incredible stories, because this channel isn't just mine, it is our collective archive. If you believe that these stories deserve to be told with the respect and depth they command, then click that subscribe button. Join us. Become a part of this battalion of history. We are digging up the past, one story at a time, and we need you on the line. The noise of 1945 has finally stopped. Stand on the black beach of Iwo Jima one last time. The smoke has drifted away, carried off by the Pacific wind. The smell of sulfur and cordite is replaced by the salt of the sea. The screaming of men and the roar of the mortars have been swallowed by time. Look down at the sand. It shifts under your feet. It buries everything. It tries to bury the brass casings. It tries to bury the blood. It tries to bury the memory of the man who stood up when everyone else was pinned down. This channel exists for one reason. We are not here to glorify the violence. We are here to fight the sand. We are here to push back against the erasure of time. Tony Stein's stinger is gone. The steel has rusted. The wood has rotted. But the idea of it, the sheer, stubborn refusal to accept defeat that remains. And it remains because you are watching. You are not just an audience member. You are a witness. By being here, by listening to the sound of that buzzsaw in your mind, you have become a custodian of Tony Stein's legacy. You have picked up the ammo belt where he dropped it. There are millions of stories like this, dissolving into the grey mist of history. Stories of ordinary mechanics, farmers, and toolmakers who did the impossible because they had no other choice. Alone, I can only find a few, but together, as a battalion of history keepers, we can find them all. We are the archivists of the impossible. Look at the screen. Imagine the stinger one last time, not as a piece of junk, but as a masterpiece of survival. It sits there, silent, but heavy with purpose. The war is over, the man is at rest. But the echo of what he did? Listen closely. It never truly fades. Thank you for standing on this beach with us. Thank you for carrying the weight. Until the next time we dig into the past, keep the memory alive.